Hello and welcome to Tiny Blue Games. Today, of course, we're playing Wildstar, and we are just about to begin our first rated battleground. Well, the first one that I'm putting on the YouTube channel. I've done some before. It's the halls that we're doing here, and we're doing it rated on our tanky engineer build. Now, we're defending first. I prefer to attack first. That way, you know, you're not purposely trying to make the game longer, but, you know, I'm okay either way. So I like to sort of just jump out of the gate and sort of see which side is going to need people right away. I saw here that absolutely no one from our team went to go defend this side, so I went here. As it turns out, they didn't come and attack, so I'm not seeing much action at this point. But you really hate it to have it where someone can just walk over and grab it. Like, at least have one person there from the start. Obviously, once you see where most of their resources are going, you're going to sort of split up the people a bit more. So we see here that someone's coming to grab it, but I'm pretty sure we just scare him off. I don't know what his big plan was ultimately. I'm going to leave the stalker there because stalkers are one of the better classes to have a singular person there. And because this flag was already capped and I want to get it back. Now, engineers are great at team fights. You notice here I've got my exosuit popped sort of the DPS these guys down as quick as I can. Because we're trying to really shut off this flag as quick as we can, hopefully before 90% so we can sort of stall them. I don't think it happens as it turns out because they've got some pretty good people on here. They've got the warrior here, and I think the other person that's on this flag is the Esper. And I don't know if many of you have noticed this, but when playing, you can often find yourself against an Esper that is very much... It almost seems like they're built for this battleground in the sense that they have, you know, the pushback to knock you off the side, which is just really irritating. It reminds me of the boomkins in WoW where they would shoot you off the middle bridge in Eye of the Storm. Something like that. But they can push you off, and then they also have the disarm ability, which I actually think the disarm abilities, there's something wrong with it, because the idea that when you're disarmed you can't cap the side points doesn't really make much sense to me. It makes it almost too good, and B, like, just very literally speaking, if you had no weapon in your hand, it would be even quicker for you to take the side points. So I don't know where Carbine was going with that logic. Not that, you know, it has to make perfect sense for it to work in this game. It's just, come on. So we're up here and we get this flag back. They took it for a little bit here. You find that this tanky engineer spec is really, really good for base fights, just for covering the bases, especially if you're not trying to melt anyone. Obviously you're doing some constant damage with the electricity here, or the particle ejector or whatever. It looks like the shock one still, but with how little it costs, you can really just keep on blasting it across the flag. And then I obviously roll around, and when you have a fair amount of resources stored up, you can drop an unsteady miasma in the center there where the flag is, or just on top of... I find it's really good to use unsteady miasma, and I'll show you this in the next battleground a lot more than this one. If you ever have spell slingers sort of on the outside of your circle, like outside of the base or anything like that, it's great to drop it on them, because that way you're really taking away for some of the DPS they could be doing if they're left alone. It makes you a very powerful damage mitigation kind of guy. So we're just sort of staying here. This is the Esper I think I was talking about earlier. Yeah, there's the little knockdown. Super fun to face, really. Especially, you've got to really position. And then he went and disarmed my friend right after that. He was definitely just using those skills in attempts to get the base. Not to say that they're overpowered skills per se. They just line up really well for the build he's trying to run here. Because he's probably going to have those, a few heals, and his, you know, geists, and just really be about pissing people off, which you definitely see. I saw it all the time while leveling up, and it's something that still happens at the level 50 battlegrounds. For time here, we're not doing great. We're at about 9 minutes. We did a lot better in the second room than we did the first room. Generally, I like to finish, or if I'm defending, as long as you beat the halfway point, so the 7-minute mark, you have a pretty good chance. And then for attacking, I like to do it around 6 minutes, and you're feeling pretty good. Both of those times it could go either way. I mean, if you held someone to the entire 14-minute length, which I did in an earlier game, you're going to win for sure. It just takes a really long time, but it's not terrible in the sense that you also get a lot of prestige and a lot of gold from the kills, like I was saying in another video here. I'll probably link it up at the top. Battlegrounds are a great way to make gold. If you haven't checked it out, do check it out. I just give you sort of the numbers that you're going to be putting out for gold, and how much time it takes you to make a certain amount of gold just playing Battlegrounds, really. Especially once you have your Elder points capped and all that. And then the other reason we're showing this video, this is footage, I guess, of the tanky PvP build that a lot of people wanted to see. So I did put it up. I've got this battleground as well as another battleground up here already. I'm not sure which battleground I'm going to release first. Probably this one, I'm thinking. So if I do, when I do release the next one, I will link it up. It's obviously just the Wakatiki rated one. And then, of course, you can check out the actual tank build video in the description. I'll link it there. Really, what we're doing here is you can see that I've gotten quite low, but they're making a bad mistake of not actually killing me. And you see a lot of teams do that, including myself. When you feel like you're going to win the point and you actually don't take the final killing blow on someone, you just sort of try and cap the flag quickly. That's a big mistake, because even one shot or one little damage will interrupt you. And if they interrupt you enough for the team to come, you've wasted your time, which they did right here. You need to execute everyone and take that flag after the fact. Otherwise, you're just going to be wasting valuable time, and it's no fun for anyone. So we've capped this, or we've prevented this from being capped. This room's going pretty well as we're already at the 7 minutes. And we're going to dip below it in a second here, which means we definitely did past the halfway point, which makes me feel pretty confident about the next round. You can see there the feedback. And there's a stalker who just did a 5k on me. I don't get hit for 5k very often, so I'm guessing he had a fair amount of strike through and attack on him. So you do get some crits and you notice them, but that's mostly because I'm just still wearing the tier 1 battleground gear, whereas some people that we're going against and that we have at this point have the next tier up, and you're going to feel the hits from them as well as the heals and obviously the tankiness. Would I say engineers are the most tanky class or build you can make? Honestly, the best tank to go against that I've ever seen is probably the stalker. They've got the most amount of, like, I don't know, they carry the flag and I can't kill them sometimes, and it really gets to me, especially fighting them here. So before we start the next round, I'll just take this like sort of minute break to discuss what you usually do to attack here. And there's a lot of different ways. Oh, you can see here on the very left the kind of money you make from killing people once you've already capped your points or whatever. So the strategy we're going to try is kind of a middle Zerg. You can do, because we had a pretty good time, we could do the middle Zerg. What you do with it is you try to wipe their team, and then after that you can send sort of one person to either side and try to get the increased speed. But we're confident enough now that if we just stood in the middle and pulled that, we would be able to win just by going through each room stacked in the center, which is probably true at this point. We're just taking a look at the damage done here. You can see that I was up around the 3rd place. Then healing done, I was also around the 3rd place as well. Not that I did a ton of healing, but it's just the healing you have from your trinket, from the deflects every so often, mixed with the helping hand, that increases your incoming healing by 25%. And the 25% increased healing that is coming to you is really great for what we're about to do in the middle here. Because even if the healer gets a few ticks on you every so often, you're going to jump up, and it's really going to help you. Now, what I like to do in the middle here is I obviously like to hit them with the reduced healing, and then as soon as I can do the blind to disable their shield. Well, the shield's already disabled, but to increase the decreased healing to 75%, and you're going to see that really melt a few of the players right away. Obviously, they're going to do some damage back, so the second part of it becomes more of a survival thing, where I pop my trinket, I try to pop down some unsteady miasma. So you've got the DPS, but what your primary job in a group fight is really to pull out your support skills. That being the unsteady miasma for the deflect and the reduced healing, obviously, as your DPS thing. And once that's taken care of, you can sort of roll around just doing some particle ejector onto them. And that's just kind of what I do, especially in group fights. When you're by yourself, you don't think about the support skills as much for the team. You think more about, because, well, there's no team with you. You're more of a one-on-one situation where you're thinking, what am I going to have to line up here to take down this person? And that's kind of a problem I had with some earlier versions of this build, is that I didn't have enough power or like damage, I guess, to ever kill people one-on-one. Like I'd kill a few people, but I never felt like, hey, if we were doing a one-on-one, I'd eventually kill you. Either it would go on forever, or he would have enough damage to eventually push me over the edge. And this build's a lot better for it, because I do feel like I have enough damage that I could kill someone. Like you see the 1.5k spikes every so often, and then there's obviously the feedback to jump it up. Mix that in with the 75% reduced healing. I usually like to use that at the very end, and you've got yourself a pretty nice little burst sort of damage that you can do. You see that they lock us down here. I'm able to take someone out. It's debatable whether it's useful to have someone here slowing down the attacking team as they walk in, or to position yourself better. You see, this is why you should always use the ramp. Don't walk off something and die. I mean, it's probably ultimately better for me because it was a 5-second spawn, and this way I get to go back to full health. But that was slightly embarrassing in the moment, because I had just survived my way in here, and then I just walk off the edge and give it right back. But, you know, whatever. I was at a low amount of health for a long time, so you notice that a lot. I was dueling G's a bunch, or Marks, I guess, and what he really notices when fighting against me is that it's not terribly hard to get me into like the 50% health range. But once I get there and I really pay attention to keeping my health up, he finds it really hard to pull me back down to like 0, obviously, for the kill. And it's a really great class for that. If you're paying attention and trying not to die, you won't die very quickly. Now, if you're in the middle of things and you're letting this stupid spellslinger just attack your team from the far, you will die. But these are the spellslingers I'm talking about. These are the guys you want to focus on. And it's just me who maybe thinks this, but it seems like the Dominion have a lot more spellslingers on, like especially spellslinger DPS, than the Exiles ever do. And I don't know why that's the case, but it seems like there's always like 4 or 5 of them that like to stand together and just sort of rotate around the circles and just let us have it. And it seems like the Exiles just choose to do nothing about it, or are unaware of how much damage spellslingers can do, because if left untouched, they do a ton. And I'm not saying they're overpowered, and the reason they're not is because they are very squishy if you do end up going after them. It's a big mistake not to take down a spellslinger when you have the chance. It really is. It will hurt your team. And if you're like a spellslinger on our side, you should snipe them out as quick as you can too. As far as classes go at this point, there's only a few kind of thoughts that are overpowered. The most agreed upon, and I'm sorry if we have any warriors on this channel that are watching, the burst DPS for warriors is a little bit crazy at the moment. Not, you know, ridiculous, but I'd say by far that's the one you notice the most, and it's by far the one that's the most agreed upon in the forums. Not to say that the forums are always right, but if there was one class you were to say, it would be that. Engineers themselves are actually thought to be a bit overpowered for their sustainable DPS specs that they can have. I'm obviously not really rolling that right now, as I'm sort of in a tanky build, but it's thought that they have a bit of overpoweredness when it comes to that. But, you know, someone's going to be overpowered at every moment, because what Carbine's going to do is they're either going to nerf the classes that are thought to be a bit overpowered in PvP, or they're going to buff the other ones up. And then, you know, it's really hard to get everything to line up 100% of the time. And I know, like, we're thinking that this game is, you know, going to be revolutionary for a lot of things, but no matter how hard they try, unless there's only one class in the game and that's all everyone can play, someone's going to be better in certain situations than other people. There's nothing they can do about that. I know it bothers me from time to time, especially when I get into the arena and it's like two warriors who just know what they can do and how to do it, and they just come and like lay on top of you and start rubbing their sword up against you, being like, yeah, you're gonna die soon, man, just let it happen. That obviously bothers me a little bit, but there's not a ton we can do about it. So we're gonna win here in a second. You see that there's a minute 30 something left. So it wasn't a blowout by any means, and that's kind of what you like for this one, because if it's a blowout, it tends to be a lot longer, or it's really quick, I guess, if the blowout team went first. But then the other team's gonna they're gonna defend till their time, so it would be quicker that way. But you see here, our mid strategy did work. We do get a few sides throughout the length of our attack. Just to accelerate it, but we've got about a minute to get 20%, and we're definitely going to do it. So I'd like to thank you for watching. I will post the other rated battleground soon if I haven't already, so be sure to check that out. Be sure to check out the build for this spec, and leave a comment on your thoughts of rated battlegrounds and your thoughts of the class you're playing. What would you like to do in battlegrounds? Like, let me know. Give some feedback on my playing. I mean, I'm obviously not the best yet, but I'm working on it very slowly. And like the video if you liked it. Thanks for watching.